Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories. Leftist media is finally admitting what what conservative media has known for years, and I mean truly years, that Joe Biden's cognitive decline was not only happening rapidly, but that his staff and family was engaged in an active cover-up that we know was covering up his cognitive and physical decline. CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios' Alex Thompson published a book with over 200 sourced interviews detailing that cover-up. Joining me today to discuss this topic and many more is political commentator Avery Warwick. Welcome, Avery.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course, this is a great story. So I want to start out with Alex Thompson. He's one of the co-authors of the Biden cover-up book titled Original Sin. He went on CNN last night to discuss an excerpt from the book in which Biden's campaign staffers admitted that they staged a fake town hall event specifically designed for a campaign ad. So this wasn't even for the people, for the American people. This was just for a campaign ad. And the footage was reportedly so bad that they couldn't use anything of the 90 minutes of taping. Watch this footage from CNN last night.
And Alex, the fact of the fake town hall is not actually the worst part of the story that you report in the book.
Yes, other campaigns have used fake town halls. Now, I would say those town halls usually are in addition to real town halls. Joe Biden was doing neither. This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall, and they determined that it was not usable. Now, some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts in a pithy or even semi-normal way. Some people just said, like, the lighting was bad. That was sort of the 2 points of view.
The lighting was bad, perhaps. Avery, please give us your hot take on this. I know that's what you're known for. What do you think not only of the commentary that Alex Thompson just made, but let's talk a little bit about the Biden campaign staffers who were covering up for this the entire time as well.
I just have to take a moment and just say, if they couldn't figure out lighting, what a poor, pathetic excuse. This is why you cannot trust anything that the Democrats say. There is no legitimate reason for anything that they do. And you know what? It might have been gross incompetence. It really might have been that they just wasted millions of dollars setting up this fake town hall. But fake is what their party is now.
Yeah, you're right. They really are just smoke and mirrors. But getting to that second point, what do you think about those staffers? I know that people like to throw crazy words out there like, we're going to send these people to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution, et cetera, et cetera. Genuinely, what do you think happens to staffers like this who, again, I don't think we realize right now the consequential actions that were taken by these staffers to cover up the most insane cognitive decline of a sitting president over a 4-year period. I think these authors have made reference to JFK having a little bit of cognitive decline, Reagan having some cognitive decline, FDR having obviously some physical decline alongside cognitive decline during his presidency. And those were, quote, covered up, but not the entire 4 years of these people's entire presidency. So what do you think happens to those staffers?
So I think that this is the big hot topic in the Republican Party right now is we want to see people being held accountable because we've been screaming this from the rooftops. We've been saying he has not been fit for office since the day he got elected. And there are people that know that. And there have been people that know that. Now, do I think most of the Biden admin staff knew that? Yes, absolutely. I do. And I think that you're silly to say that you don't. All the reporters that were falsely reporting, I think there needs to be some type of accountability to be had. That being said, I do think the majority of the staff are grossly incompetent. I do not think that they approached this as a way to be evil. That being said, I do think that Jill Biden, Nancy Pelosi, I think the leaders of the Democrat Party, I think Kamala Harris, I think anyone who met with Biden on a regular basis and knew about this and should have raised concern and did not need to be held accountable. There needs to be some form of justice because what the hell has been happening in our highest Oval Office? This is our highest form of government, and we don't know who's been in charge of it. That's a very scary thing. That is a real threat to democracy.
Yeah, it's so funny. They love to throw those words around, yet I think one of the big things that we perhaps missed, because again, it was a long cover up, not just a cover up from Biden's inner circle, but it was a partial cover up from people like Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, to name a couple of people who made it seem like they were having much more regular and frequent meetings with Biden and his team than they actually were. And part of that was to give themselves kind of an ego bump. But simultaneously, they weren't actually in the halls of power. And so they were lying openly to us as well. Personally, though, Avery, I think that the Democratic staffers that were at Biden's White House who covered this up are going to be rewarded for it, personally. I think that they're going to walk into interviews and go, yeah, I worked in the Biden administration. You never heard a peep from me. I wasn't a leaker. All of a sudden, that becomes a bona fide thumbs up for them for other Democratic offices that are trying to keep things from the American public. So I think that's
Because
frightening.
that's what it is.
Yeah,
Corruption.
that sounds exactly like something they would do.
One more note, Karine Jean-Pierre, she
Mhm.
even went on, I don't know what news station and said that she wasn't meeting regularly with Biden.
Yes. Yeah, I believe
So
she
I
said that on
do think that
MSNBC.
Biden was kept behind closed doors, and I think that his appearance was limited, which should have been something to raise concern with staffers.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to pivot too far away from the story because it's just there's so much meat in there, What do you think of the left's sudden interest in this Biden cognitive decline? Because like I said, we just watched a clip from CNN, which CNN was doing I believe an active cover-up. If not active cover-up, acts of covering up. Either way, however you want to slice it, they weren't necessarily searching and actively going after the truth. What do you think spiked this sudden interest, and do you think it's genuine?
No, nothing that they do is genuine. It's CYA, cover your ass. I think that Biden was given a terminal diagnosis about probably while he was in office. I would bet we're coming up on a year. I think his days are numbered, and I think that they know that this is going to come out. It's a ticking clock, and so they need to do something to get ahead of it. And he's being used as a puppet. And anyone who says that we cannot speak on this is insane because, again, this is our highest office. And the only reason the Democrats are even coming out and saying anything about it is because they're trying to CYA, is because they're trying to, again, mass manipulate the public.
What do you say, as someone who's very unashamed of her political views, what do you say to the people like Meghan McCain? We were talking about this on Tuesday's show about how Meghan McCain thinks we need to stop talking about this diagnosis in politicized terms because this is a very sad and tragic diagnosis. To me, that is just engaging further in the cover-up.
I agree. Pierce Morgan said the same thing, and it was extremely disappointing to hear because if we can't question our highest office, what can we do?
Mm. No,
Where
that's
do our
good.
freedoms stop and start?
No,
So
you're
if we
spot
can't
on.
question who's been running our office, who signed these pardons, who signed these executive orders, who was behind the auto pen, if we can't get a legitimate answer on Biden's mental state, the president of the free world, if we can't get a straight answer on his mental state, that's terrifying to our freedoms, to our country. So, yes, it's being complicit in a cover-up and the biggest one we've ever seen. That being said, it was obvious to anyone with two eyes.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, I think you're spot
it
on
was
there.
that obvious.
Yeah. I think we all know it. Anybody who was a truth teller was perfectly fine with that. And what's so funny is, and I say this in a very endearing way, not necessarily in a negative way, is we were so focused on Biden's cognitive decline that we chalked up all of his physical decline to his mental decline without kind of realizing that there were two things going on. It's almost like conservative media at the same time became so blindsided by the one narrative that we had crafted, we didn't think that it could get any worse, which is kind of funny. But I do want to pull up our docket for today, guys. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Biden cognitive decline cover-up. Plus, comedian Theo is under fire for comments he made about the ongoing war in Gaza. Gayle King, who went up to space with Katy Perry, has now come back to Earth and may be out of a job. Plus, we've got an installment of our random racism segment at the end of the show. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. I love uncovering the truth in politics, in media, and even the truth about what's in our so-called cleaning products. Most store-bought cleaning products are loaded with toxic chemicals, hormone disruptors, and allergens. Yuck. This stuff is horrible for your health. It's going to impact your health, your kids' health, even your pet's health. That's why I made the switch to Branch Basics. Their products are completely non-toxic and human-safe. No synthetic fragrances or weird chemicals. They use plant and mineral-based formulas that leave your home truly clean without compromising your health. If you are ready to toss the toxins, head over to branchbasics.com/Chrissy, or you can use the link in the description below. Again, use code Chrissy to get 15% off your order. Use code Chrissy, CHRISSY, at checkout. So again, I want to stick with this Biden cognitive decline story. In an interview yesterday on the Megyn Kelly show, CNN anchor Jake Tapper claimed he has a rocky relationship with the Biden administration as well as the Biden family. And I'm only inclined to believe this because I've, God forbid, read so many of Joe Biden's memoirs against my will for previous jobs. And I do know that the family perceives the left-wing mainstream media to be antagonists to their family. Now, Avery, you and I on the right perceive that as delusional, but that doesn't mean that's not the reality of what the Biden household sees. So couple that with a new report out from the New York Post. Jake Tapper has reportedly been in a years-long feud with Biden's son, Hunter Biden. So the feud reportedly began in 2015 when Tapper repeatedly called Hunter as his brother Beau Biden was dying of brain cancer. Hunter reportedly blocked Tapper's number, and then Tapper reportedly called him from an unknown number after being blocked. Hunter Biden called him back and said, "Go F yourself, Jake." The duo then came face-to-face in 2018 at the Super Bowl in Minneapolis, where tensions were sky high, according to eyewitnesses. Those same witnesses recalled seeing Hunter Biden put his arm around Tapper's shoulder, telling him, "I would knock you out," if they weren't in a public setting. What do you make of this longstanding feud, Avery? Do you find it odd that Tapper would basically go to bat for Biden on air while privately feuding with the president, or at least his family?
This is what happens when you get 2 snakes in the ground. Neither party can be trusted. Neither party clearly stands on any beliefs, any morals, anything. You would struggle to define their values. So this is not surprising to me. Tapper also, in this same story, said that called out Hunter for cheating on his wife with his brother's widow.
Yes. So
Darts are being thrown.
yes, let's pull that
I mean,
clip up. This is interesting. So what Avery's referencing is that Jake Tapper went on he's going on this media tour right now for press for his book, which was released yesterday or 2 days ago, Tuesday, May 20th. And he did an interview with Katie Couric's media company. Let's take a listen.
How big a factor was the Hunter stuff?
I think it was considerable. I think Hunter was driving the decision making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff of the family.
Does that strike you as pretty bizarre?
It's bizarre because I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack. That's just one thing I could say. I mean, I don't have a lot of personal regard for him, and just based on having nothing to do with, I barely have ever met him. I've met him like once or twice, but I knew Beau. Beau was a great, upstanding guy.
I knew him too. Really,
a real loss for the country too, not just for his family, for the country. But Hunter is not that, and the idea of letting him drive the family car, as it were, is just really, really questionable.
And it went on and on and on like that.
That's a
Okay, now
crazy thing to say.
that is, but knowing
It's
about
true.
Jake Tapper's now this relationship, does that make him more or less of a reliable voice to share this story now that you know the kind of the back end of the feud?
No, he's not a reliable source. He's lied. He gaslit and lied to the American people over and over and over again, and now he wants to be the one that's breaking this groundbreaking story of President Biden's decline that we have been screaming for 4 years, and he told us to sit down. And now, all of a sudden, he wants to control the narrative? No, I don't trust either of them.
Yeah, so tell me about a little bit about your feelings on Alex Thompson because a lot of people online have perceived the duo as interesting because their relationship seems a little tense. We do know that Alex Thompson was set to release a book with I want to say it was either Penguin Random House or Simon and Schuster. I want to say it was Simon and Schuster, where he was set to release a book that he wanted to title Haunted, talking about the hauntings of Joe Biden's life, dealing with the Beau Biden situation, the haunting of Donald Trump in both election cycles, the haunting of Hunter Biden over his life, etc., the death of his first wife, all of those stories and how his life has kind of been haunted. That book gets X'd, and Alex Thompson returns his entire advance for the book. And then all of a sudden, Jake Tapper walks in, waltzes on in, and the book is now supposed to be a bestseller. What do you make of that relationship intention? And do you see Alex Thompson as any more of a truth teller than Tapper?
No, I think they're all snakes.
Feel free to
You not?
elaborate there.
You not?
No, it's not that. It's that it's a willful ignorance, right? So when you're ignoring something for so long, I don't think that's not a cover up. But at the same time, I have, for example, I think with I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get demonetized, but like with the jab, at first I was like, screw it, like I want to, I just want to move on with my life, whatever it takes to move on with my life. That's what I want because I was young and naive and stupid. And then my eyes were opened very soon after to all the negative consequences, all of the political, and it was like a red pill moment for me. And so I have, how do I put it? Like a little bit of empathy for people who, while they should know better, can come forward later and say, I was totally wrong. Now, I think they've been media trained up the wazoo to say
I don't
that.
have that empathy for these two. I don't.
Not Alex
No, I
Thompson,
don't.
I know Jake Tapper. I don't feel I lack that for him. Alex Thompson, I'm kind of like, he's not like the biggest reporter where you would like walk down the street and go, hey, that's Alex Thompson.
No, they're all lying snakes. I don't have empathy. I don't have empathy for them because what they did wasn't just unintentional. It was intentional. They knew that they were lying. They were pushing a story that no one with 2 brain cells could look at and believe. It truly is like me saying, this is green, and you going, nope, it's blue. And we're all supposed to accept it. That is a responsibility on you. Mass manipulating and lying and somehow convincing a quarter, 30, 40% of the population that this is blue. It's insane. It's insanity. That's how evident Biden's decline was. That's how much they lied and covered up. So no, I have zero empathy for them coming back and quote unquote doing the right thing now. Because it was never the right thing. They're trying to cover their ass. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah. No, I don't think the book would be where it's at without waiting until after the administration ended so that they could interview more people to get more information. I understand the timing of it. I just think that it's frustrating to people who saw it for so long that these two weren't pressing for it when they had access to the White House, unlike so many conservative commentators. So I definitely feel that frustration while simultaneously understanding that, like, if I wanted dirt on the Trump administration, if I was planning on writing a book and something like this was happening in the Trump administration that we just don't know about right now, the sources are not going to come forward while they're currently employed there, but they will after. So it's like a mixed bag of empathy for me. I'm like, I understand, I operate in reality that these people are not going to stake their job for Jake Tapper's book. But at the same time, their record did nothing to help them come across as good, reliable sources for this. But
See, I think they're all gonna double down. I think these staffers, like, they're they're not gonna admit to knowing about his decline and lying to the people. So they're gonna double down on their crazy. We see it time and time again. The Democrats double down on their crazy.
yeah, publicly. But
There's
they
no
have been
logic.
admitting it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to move on because our next topic is, I know, probably my favorite topic of the day. I don't know about yours. So Theo Von, he's this very popular podcast host and comedian who's come across as a lot more MAGA conservative in the last couple of years. And I should note, is also a very close friend of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump's. He's facing online backlash right now after posting a clip about how he, quote, feels like what's happening in Gaza between Israel and Hamas is a, quote, genocide that we're watching in real time. I'm going to pull up a clip, and it has been kind of stitched together, so it might sound a little choppy. There's no deceptive editing in this. This is simply to cut out his million breaths in between every other word.
There's a conflict that's been happening in the Middle East. People know about it, between Israel and Palestine and some of the areas over there, the Gaza area they talk about. And I just think it feels to me, I don't know if it feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive here in front of our lives.
Okay, Avery, what is your initial reaction to Theo Von's comments on this?
It breaks my heart. I see this as pro-Hamas propaganda at work. And I think maybe I know too much. So when I see stuff like this, it breaks my heart. That being said, I do like Theo Von, and I do think that it should be normalized to open up conversation about this stuff. And I don't think we should all just immediately hate on him for it. But I think instead maybe take it as an opportunity to teach. It's just very, very hard to see this type of propaganda be so successful in Western culture.
Yeah, well, a lot of commentators were noting that Theo Von was in Qatar earlier this month. And for those of you who don't know, Qatar is a state sponsor of a lot of that jihadist-style terrorism that we see coming from Gaza, coming from Lebanon. I have personally, and I've opened up about it on the show before, already started to see the way that Qatari officials are starting to reach out to conservative influencers, myself included. And I'm not going to talk about what was offered, whatever. I'm not doing anything with them. Full transparency for the audience, but it is happening. Do you think that there is any connection there? Or is this just simply Theo Von can't be bought, he's just free speaking and maybe watching too much Candace Owens?
It's a good question. It's one that should be asked. It's one that I would prefer is asked directly to him. I think there's no way that his trip to the Middle East didn't play a role. I think he lives 5 minutes from Candace Owens. I think he's friends with Candace Owens.
Yeah, we
I
all live
think
in
he
Nashville
watches
here.
I think he watches a lot of Tucker Carlson. I don't know if he would ever I don't think he's the type of person to accept money from like the Qatari regime. I would hope not. That being said, it just feels like my heart sinks into my stomach when I see stuff like this, because nowhere in his statement was there anything about the Israeli hostages. Nowhere in his statement was there anything about October 7th. And if he had actually sat down and watched what Hamas released from their footage that they took on October 7th, if everyone in the world sat down and watched that footage in whole, the world would be a very different place. And we're not believing Hamas when they're showing us and telling us who they are. And if they can manipulate Western civilization like this, what chance do we have? And so that's where I get really scared.
Yeah, and as this commentary was being made, a top Hamas official began facing international backlash for saying that the death toll of civilians in Gaza is a, quote, price that must be paid. His name is Sami Abu Zuri, and he claims that the latest estimates were that 53,000 people in Gaza have been killed amid this war. And he said, quote, the martyrs killed in this war, the wombs of Gaza's women will give birth to twice as many. This is the price that must be paid. Zuri made these comments not from within Gaza, but notably about 1,100 miles away in Qatar. So my thought on this was, okay, so now we know that the top of heads of Hamas are in Qatar, so that's frightening in and of itself. Then we have, I don't think anyone out here is advocating. No one from Israel. I've talked to Israeli Defense Forces and myself. They're not advocating for the slaughtering of women and children in Gaza. They're doing their best. Hamas uses these people as human shields. But my real question for you, Avery, is where are the feminists in this? Because what I heard in that statement is that who cares that my civilian population is dying for a war we started? Who cares? We're just going to have women, we're going to force them to bear children, indoctrinate those children, and then send them out to die in the name of jihad. Where the fuck are the feminists decrying this?
It's terrifying. I do not think actually, they have made it evidently clear to anyone who's paying attention that they don't value life in the same way that Judeo-Christian nations do. They don't value life. And they have been extremely successful in pushing their it's not pro-Palestine, it's pro-Hamas propaganda. Because that's what it is. Like, there's no such thing as free Palestine. There's no such thing as pro-Palestine. It's Hamas. They are one and the same. 2/3 of all Palestinians approve of the atrocities that happened on October 7th. That is terrorism. Watch the videos. You will feel differently. So where are the feminists? The whole feminist movement is a hypocritical way to virtue signal and feel good about yourself. These people don't care about human life. They don't value human life, and the people that are supporting it don't understand that. They can't. I have to believe that they cannot understand it.
Yeah, I think they just don't see how it all connects so simply, right? There's one or two things that make you feel a little diseasy, and I am happy to admit that, or fine to admit that I think that there is anytime people question the state of Israel, which is different from Jewish people, there is immediate condemnation of anti-Semitism or, damnation of anti-Semitism and criticism. And I don't think that that's fair. I definitely think that as Christians, which I don't know if that's exact, are you Christian? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but
I was raised Christian. Yeah.
Okay. I think that most Christians, which is a large sect of Americans, were called to be for the state of Israel, right? God's chosen people, yada, yada, yada. That doesn't mean evil can't be perpetrated through that, right? There can be evil people in a system or in a country that we like. And so calling that out, I don't think is anti-Semitic. It's the use of the word genocide in there that I think has triggered people, right? It's not necessarily Theo Von's criticism of the Israeli state. I think that's totally fine. I think anybody that says you must agree with 100% of what the Israeli state does or you're anti-Semitic is freaking crazy and making their cause worse. But simultaneously, this flippant use of the word genocide, like it doesn't have a real meaning, it's almost the same way, and it's more dangerous, but it's the same way we just like flippantly throw the word racism out in America.
So I always go back to, in America, we have, I think most Americans, regardless of political aisle, I would hope, would argue that America is a great place to live, that our system is not broken, even when we don't like who our leaders are. You guys liked it while Biden was president. You guys would like it if Kamala was president. You don't like it if Trump's president. Welcome to the club, how we felt the last 4 years, right? But we're living in a country that has a ton of corruption in our leadership, where the Republican Party is actively and openly trying to call this out, actively criticizing our country. We are living in a country where our own CIA was likely responsible for the death of a sitting president, right? We, the American people, have done this. The American people are sending billions of dollars to known terrorist organizations. We we could critique so many things that America has done. That does not mean America is broken. So this is why I don't like the critique on Israel in the way that if people critique and then say, "Oh, well, Israel is bad," because look what we've been responsible for as America. That doesn't make America bad. It just means that there's going to be bad people in a system because no system's going to be perfect. Nothing. When you get a big group of people together, there's going to be corruption.
Yeah.
It's human nature. And so I don't mind the critique of any state. I think that that's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, for all things that America and Israel offer. Do you know who doesn't offer that?
Palestine, quote
Right,
unquote.
right.
Right.
So it doesn't bother me when people critique Israel, nor does it bother any of like the pro-Israelis or anyone from Israel or any of the Jewish people or Jewish Americans or anyone really that supports this. What it bothers me about is when people critique it and then say, well, that makes Israel bad. Israel's responsible for 9/11. Israel's responsible for like all Jews are bad. And that is where the rhetoric gets so dangerous and where the propaganda has been successful. Um, and so, I mean, even just going back to Theo Vaughn's comment, you can critique Israel. You could critique any country in America. That's the beauty of free speech. Aren't we lucky?
Yeah, we really are. I do want to pivot our story or pivot us to our next story, which is coming out of, I believe this is a New York Post exclusive. Gayle King, who has been anchoring at CBS News for 13 years, may finally be leaving the network, inside sources are claiming. King is a very notorious host of CBS Mornings and will reportedly face really tough negotiations to renew her contract, which is up in September. Insiders claim King is making approximately $10 million a year, down from her previous $13 million contract. Oh, poor thing. And this comes as her ratings are absolutely plummeting. So Avery, pivoting a little bit back to our media conversation, and also a little bit of a silly question. Is this what happens when you spend time with Katy Perry in space? You
I was
go
gonna
up and your
say,
career tanks.
she got some air in space. I don't know what to say. She This isn't a surprise to me. I mean, I think any face, she's been a face of CBS, and CBS cannot be trusted. They have mass manipulated and lied to the public over and over and over and over again. And enough people are waking up and just tired of it. And so when you have somebody who has served as the face of a lying network, they're going to go at some point. The public's not going to want it anymore. You will face consequences for lying to the American people, just as we're seeing with the Democratic Party, just as we're seeing with the mainstream media. There's consequences to your actions.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I kind of see him somewhat as a generational thing of like generational talent is starting to age out of their seats and they're going to start seeing a younger generation come in. But with that, there needs to be an establishment of trust that's been completely lost. And so I'm curious whether you think a lot of these mainstay talents we're going to start seeing filtering out over the next 2 to 3 years. And I have a feeling I can already see the media narrative. Because of Trump, XYZ talent is being booted out. It's like, no, because of your own incompetence and lies, you are being booted
Exactly.
out of your position.
Look at the 60-minute interview with Kamala. That's election interference. That has major consequences to the people, we the people. And we the people are pissed. I'm pissed about it. I'm pissed watching the full interview. Look at, even they lied about Bill Belichick and his girlfriend Jordan. I mean, how ridiculous. They just lie about every single thing. You cannot trust anything. You can't read a headline and trust it because they're all about clickbait and rage bait. And we're tired of it. And that's why independent journalists like yourself, people are turning to over and over and over again. And me personally, I do this all day. I consume a disgusting amount of news and information, and I can't even watch the mainstream media. Can you?
No, absolutely not.
I can't
And I
do
mean,
it.
I say this used to be kind of like my tagline. It still is. I just don't say it as much because I'm out of breath by the time I finish saying it, but
I'm tired.
yeah, I'm tired. Honestly, our tagline here is like, we cover the stories that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News don't. I think it's yes, leftist media, and I'm not, you know, blowing cover for the left. They're the worst at this, but like there are corporate interests in the right that have stopped many people on the right from covering important stories. I've witnessed it. I've been at these news outlets. I've witnessed it myself. So I just know that covering up stories is something that is so pervasive across the board at any corporate outlet, left, right, or center. And that's why I think, to your point, independent media is so much better because love her or hate her, like truly love her or hate her, whatever comes into Candace Owens' inbox, she's going to investigate it because she has no vested like ties or interest to anybody, right? She
There's no
makes
one to answer to.
Yeah, she has a shit ton of money from her own marriage. She doesn't need to work. She just gets to kind of go, and she might come up to crazy conclusions that I personally don't agree with, but that is why people turn to her, right? Because they know she's not bought and paid for. And that's why I think people turn to it. But I don't know if getting new people in the seat of Gayle King changes anything. Do you?
No, I think they're gonna keep replacing, but I think they're gonna replace with irrelevant people. I do not think that our generation will tune in ever. I think we're so skewed. I just think that they're all gonna eventually die in our lifetime, and then it'll be people that the public trusts. So whether or not they should trust them, Megyn Kelly just launched MK Media. She brought on Link, Marine, and I think one more guy.
Yeah, Mark Halpern.
There we go. Sorry, thank you. Um, she brought them on. They're top of the charts. Everyone is listening to what they have to say because they're under a trusted name, a legitimate news source that people trust, Megyn Kelly, and they know that the only person that those people are answering to is Megyn Kelly, and they trust Megyn Kelly. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, like Tucker Carlson doing something similar, or I mean Ben Shapiro does it with the Daily Wire. We're going to see these names that people trust and have a large following creating their own news sites, news networks.
I can tell you from personal experience that is well underway right now in the ecosphere. It's very interesting to watch. I do want to move on to our next story for time's sake. So Washington, D.C. instituted a very progressive ballot measure back in 2022, known colloquially as Initiative 82. Not a very catchy title, but that's what it's called. And what it did was it changed the minimum wage laws for tipped workers. So usually when you are a tipped worker, you make a lower base wage. And before 2022, that base wage for tipped workers was $5.35. Move forward, they passed Initiative 82. Minimum wage in DC is now $15. So tipped workers now make $15 plus their tips, which sounds great for the worker. It's borderline awful for the consumers as well as the restaurants, the actual businesses. Mayor Muriel Bowser now has admitted this is an epic failure, as any basic economics professor could have told you. Or I feel like in elementary schoolers, you did an exercise with like candy or Halloween candy and you showed them how this was going to work. They could have figured this out, but somehow Muriel Bowser and the entire DC Council has not figured out that passing down high prices to consumers during a period of high inflation is going to be an absolute mess. Why does it feel like Democrats lack the foresight to just see the basic outcomes of Economics 101? What is it, Avery? Like, I need a real substantive answer because I just don't get it.
I have one for you. and it's literally so simple. Common sense. That's why common sense is so popular with the Trump administration. That's why it's their tagline. Because so many people lack basic common sense. And so many of these Democrat leaders, they're either pure evil, or they are grossly incompetent. There's really no in between. And so they lack basic common sense and a basic understanding, and they want to virtue signal because they believe that they need to be everyone's savior. And the world doesn't work like that. And the economy doesn't work like that. Businesses don't work like that. So they think that they need to overstep into people's personal lives, which owning and running a small business is your personal life, and force them to pay their employees $15 an hour for minimum wage, which is going to epically fail, and we have seen has epically failed. But they have to be the ones who save the day, no matter what, because they
It's so
lack common sense.
it's so odd. It's so
So
odd to
strange.
me. It's part of it is cultural too, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like they want to set us up for failure, but it is a
Mhm.
political correctness issue, right? Like, you're not allowed, or it's, like, not nice to say that you probably shouldn't be working at a restaurant your entire life, right? It should be an
Right.
entry-level job, and maybe you move into management, or maybe, you utilize it as a platform to pay your bills while you're working on a side project that you feel more passionate. There's so many opportunities, there's so many different ways to live your life, and I'm not trying to condemn anybody's type of living, but at the same time, I think it's delusional to say that jobs in America were built to support, like, a family of 5 working at your local restaurant. I just
It's n
think that's delusional.
This is where personal accountability is lost on the Democrats.
Yeah.
It's a personal choice to if you want to go spend your entire life working at a restaurant getting paid minimum wage, fine, do it. That's a personal choice that you are making, and you now have the personal accountability to those consequences. And the Democrats no longer believe in personal accountability. They don't believe in seeing out these consequences of your personal choices that people make in a day-to-day life. And it's creating their downfall.
They're such simple things, right, that where you sit down for maybe 5 minutes. It's not like it requires, like, a super powered brain to put these things together, and you're like, eh, these things just don't add up, and it's not even a political commentary, it's a common sense commentary, and then you're just trying to align your common sense with whichever party fits that common sense, and moreover than not, Republicans in the last 8 years have been the ones doing that. Now, they haven't always been the ones doing that. The early 2000s Republicans, I think, are absolute morons. I would never have been a Republican in the early 2000s. It would have been, like, considered a fascist in the
Yeah, it's
early
actually
2000s.
interesting you put this up because our party is no longer the quote unquote Republican Party. It's
Right.
not traditional Republicans. It's not a Bush Republican. We are we are 90s liberals. We're
Yeah.
libertarians. That's what we are now.
No, it's really
It's
fascinating.
common sense. We're
I know.
90s liberals, libertarians. We are fighting against big pharma, what the Democrats used to fight for. We are fighting for personal accountability, what the Democrats used to fight for. Smaller government, what the like we are fighting for everything that the 90s liberals used to fight for. And they're calling us crazy for doing so.
I know. It's actually so funny. It would have been 2015. I went on my first family vacation. I was a freshman in college, and I got into my first fight with my mom over politics, and I told her that George Bush was a moron and that if I was alive to vote, I would have or if I had to pick between George Bush or Bill Clinton. Obviously they didn't run against each other. If I had to pick between the two, I would have picked Bill Clinton despite all of his flaws, because I think George Bush is that big of a moron. And she yelled at me and she yelled at me, and she just came back from Mother's Day, and someone was asking us at dinner how I got into politics, and I was like, "Oh, like, my mom is really political." And I was like, "Yeah, but we didn't always agree." And I told them that story, and my mom goes, "Oh, I was wrong. You were right." I'm like, "Oh, I love hearing that." It's true. Like, we do align a little bit more with that.
It's funny, Megyn Kelly talked about this too. She talked about how they were being told to push basically pro-war, pro our involvement in the Middle East, which was grossly mishandled to a point that I truly believe a high school student could have done it better than Bush. The amount of mistakes he made is it was we're still seeing the consequences. We are. It it's very, very sad looking back, but I think that's so cool that we've evolved as a party, where before they wouldn't question this stuff, and again, a lot to do with mainstream media. Megyn Kelly talks about it. But now there's been such a breakthrough. We have so many former Democrats on our side, and Trump is not a conservative, he's a populist. So It's literally, we're just the party of common sense now. And how cool that we've been able to evolve and we've been able to look back and go, wasn't the best stuff. Wasn't the best. Not great. Not great, but let's learn and move better. And that kind of acknowledgement of our mistakes in the past is exactly what the Democrats are not doing. They're not evolving.
It's interesting because I think they're at an inflection point where if they would just admit to their wrong, they actually could. This could be their pivoting point to move forward, but they're in this weird denial. Anyway, I do want to get to our fifth story because we're just running short on time. But a Korean pop star is facing backlash after yelling, "I love Trump" at a concert. Jungsu Park is a member of Super Junior, a massively popular K-pop boy band, and during a concert in LA, Park could be heard yelling, "I love Five Guys, I love In-N-Out, I love Trump, and I love Elon." People in the audience were either cheering or booing, but this does come on the heels of Bruce Springsteen giving his concert goers a rant for multiple minutes about how Donald Trump is one of the worst human beings on the planet. Here's a taste of what Bruce sounded like.
They're removing residents off American streets, and without
Okay. My question for you is, why does it always seem like people take such issue with pop stars being conservative? Not even conservative. He's just this Jungsu Park was just saying he supports the president of the United States. But then no one seems to care
No.
when a pop star is liberal. What the hell?
It's such a double standard. It's why Hollywood's being canceled. I love this Korean pop star. First, I saw a picture of him. I found out he's 41. I would like to know his skincare routine. That's my question number one.
Korean
That
skincare. I
man's
hear it's
taking care of
everything.
himself. That is question number one. Question number two is, why is he facing such backlash? All he said is he likes In-N-Out, Five Guys, and Trump, and Elon. I love those things. Most of America loves those things. The liberals need to get on board with the fact that we are currently red. We're red. Get over it. Get over it. Put on your big girl pants, your big boy pants. Pour yourself a drink, maybe. Bitch to your friends because you have that freedom to do so in America. And shut up.
Shut up online. I know it's like
Publicly.
I
We
know
don't
it's
care.
there is a weird thing about liberalism. It's like weird disease that like I see it a lot. So I'm not really a consumer of many news podcasts. I listen to Megyn Kelly's AM Update because it's just a great news show, but I don't listen to her
She's a good
actual
follow.
show anymore. Most sorry because I'm a news reporter as well. I'm trying to not copy anybody. Like I just need to stick to
I
my
know.
own who I am as a person. And then I listen to a pop culture podcast called The Toast. And it's so funny
I listen
because
to hers.
I love The Toast.
I
So
love them.
it's just so fascinating though because the Toast Girls, for anybody in the audience who doesn't know what the show, it's like a pop culture podcast. One of the hosts, they're both sisters. One of them is like pretty staunchly conservative based on her commentary. The other one is probably like a 90s liberal. We don't really know. And they don't talk about politics explicitly. The only thing they'll say is like one of them really likes Tesla and Elon Musk. And that is about the extent that they will talk about politics other than Israel because they're both Jewish. But it's very weird the way you will see people online, and it's only liberals, making posts, and I get them on my feed all the time. I can't listen to The Toast. They're not liberal. I can't listen to them anymore. I'm taking a stand up. I'm like, they're like one of the most popular podcasts in the nation. No one gives a shit if you're not listening to them. Why, to your point, can't people just go home, bitch quietly, and like move on with their life? Why is it that they have to make a big scene on social media? It's why people on the right say it feels like a mental illness.
So I always go back whenever I hear this rhetoric and see this narrative play out over and over and over again. I always go back to Charlie Kirk once said, someone asked him why he was on campus. And he said, I believe having discussion is important. When we stop communicating is when things go bad. When we stop communicating in a marriage, you get divorced. When you stop communicating at your job, you get fired. You don't get your project done, whatever it may be. When you stop communicating politically, we do things like justify genocide. We do things like the Holocaust. We go to war, and it costs people lives. And I think that's why it's so important that we start opening up dialogue. And it's incredibly frustrating because I'm not perfect in doing this, but I do try to open up and see different sides. And I would classify myself as a very logical person. I can understand different viewpoints. That being said, the leftists, and not all liberals, not all Democrats, but the leftists of today are dangerous because they will not listen to both sides. They can't stand on anything. They can't define their beliefs. Their beliefs are anti-Trump, anti-Republicans, anti-Elon Musk. They just stand against what they have been brainwashed into believing is bad. But when you start questioning them, they just start insulting. And I think that this is a very pivotal moment in society where we have to figure out a way to either have dialogue or we will fall from it. And I do genuinely believe this.
It's awesome. I agree. I've been a staunch advocate of having more conversations, not less. I just wish that they were conversations, not screaming at your camera on TikTok, you know? And who am I to judge? I scream at my camera on TikTok for a
I know,
living.
I do the same thing, so I can't like sit here and preach from my moral high ground. I'm not on a moral high ground, but that's the difference is I'm saying I'm not on a moral high ground. Whereas oftentimes you see the leftists preaching at you from a moral high ground that you go, wait, this falls apart very easily. You start asking questions, you start digging into it, you start trying to figure out what they're really standing for and what they believe, and they can't define it. And this is exactly a repeat of history.
Well, I do want to get to our final segment, guys. Before we wrap up, we are going to play a little segment or a round of a segment we call Random Racism.
Random Racism!
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is being absolutely dragged online for saying that the reason he hires so many Black people to run the city of Chicago is because Black people are the most generous race. Watch this.
Some detractors that will push back on me and say, you know, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of Black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet.
What's fascinating is that I wanted to go and either prove this or disprove this. There is a 2023 study from the University of Indiana that found that during the pandemic, Black households were more likely to give to religious organizations than their Hispanic or white counterparts. It was Black people were at a 50% rate, Hispanics at 41%, white people at 38%. However, every other research that you go shows that 85% of people that give to charity come from affluent families. And I was reliably informed by all the leftists that there are no affluent Black people in America. They are all oppressed by America's white supremacy. So which is it?
Chrissy.
Sorry, am I wrong there? I came here to spit facts.
It's just so racist. Not from you.
No, I know. That's why we have a segment called Random Racism.
How could anyone watch that and not go, this is blatantly racist?
I don't know.
Like, this is what I mean when I say the liberals are just clown show. Like, what do you stand for?
What
you guys
would
are
happen
telling
if a white person said this? Like, what would happen if I was like, if I got on my podcast and I said, well, given that 85% of whatever households are affluent, that they give to charity, I'm hiring white people to run my company or to run my city because they're so generous.
Yeah, because he goes on to say, like, head of Department of Agriculture, Black woman, so and so, head of Department of Education, Black. He just goes and like lists everyone who's Black.
Hell.
And it's crazy. But this is what, like, they have a narrative that says Black people can't succeed in society. They have a narrative that Black Americans are oppressed. And this is where it goes back to personal accountability. Because the Democrats do not believe in personal accountability. In America, there are no laws. I can't believe I have to tell. Like, I don't know why we're having this conversation.
No, I know. It's like
There's nothing
it's so
holding
blatant.
anyone back based on the color of their skin in
No.
America. And
No.
thank God for it.
Yeah.
Truly.
Oh, you put a bow on it so perfectly. Girl, if people want to laugh, giggle, follow you on social media, where can they do so?
My TikTok, it's Avery Warwick. My Instagram, which I need to grow. Because I started doing this. I don't know if you know this. I started posting in December.
Yeah, we
And I
featured your
started
video on our show. The first one that I think you went really viral on, which was you talking about your experience at wherever you went to college.
UCLA.
Yeah.
Yeah, at UCLA. I got kicked out of a class at UCLA for voting for Trump. I
Mhm.
graduated from UCLA. A lot of liberals love to spin that. I have my degree. I just got kicked out of a class. But I was also living in England for the past 3+ years. And I just saw how bad it got so quickly there. And they held elections and they went Labor and then we elected Trump. And so I came back here and I was like, I have to start saying something because I'm not somebody that complains without action. I'm a doer. I have to do something. So I'm not going to complain and not do anything. So I feel like I'm in a position to be a voice and I can be a voice for people that are not in a position to do so. And so I was equally frustrated. And as many Americans, I would argue half of America is deeply frustrated, but half of America has jobs where their boss is super liberal, cannot speak out, family members, because the leftists are so aggressive and they don't hear you and they will just deem you as bad. And so they don't want to ruffle any feathers in their personal life. So I started speaking out. So I started on TikTok. And I grew to like 100,000 followers in about 3 months. And then my TikTok got taken away and we've gone through this about 5 times now. And but I am on TikTok. It's Avery Warwick. My Instagram is Avery Warwick and my X is Avery Warwick. And when I first started posting, it was pretty crazy because in the first like month of me posting, Elon reposted me on X. PragerU, Mark Levin did a segment on me saying how much he likes me and how people need to speak out. And so it was a nice reassurance and it's also a nice lesson for people. If you want to speak out, speak out. There will be so many people that support you because we know how hard it is.
Yeah. I think my audience who really sometimes gets irritated by my nuance, but they're here because they still love and appreciate it. I think they're absolutely going to love you. Let me tell you that. So thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm so glad we connected too.
Yeah. If you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the rock star emoji as an homage to that K-pop band? Maybe I'll give K-pop a try after that. I really doubt it, but anyway. This was a nice long episode, so enjoy your long weekend. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Bye, friends! Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye!